the Capri. He's missing mirrors. I think there used to be a front, like a low spoiler on the front. Obviously the rear spoiler on the tail. Bumpers, oh yeah, must be bumpers front and back are missing. Tires again, and a good clean. And the other thing we've noticed is the front wheel arches look like they've been hacked off at some stage. Not too sure why that would have been done. So it could be, I don't know, we'll experiment with maybe trying to build them up again, or at least just smooth them off. But yeah, that might be a job to experiment on. Right, here's the Ford Capri in pieces. It's basically been dismantled, and then all the plastic body parts have been washed in a bit of warm soapy water and then dried off. The driver's cockpit sits in the body shell. Couple of clips normally hold it in place at the back and at the front here, but in the body, that's only the front clip is still present. The back one seems to have broken. The glass is still being held in place, so it might be a case of a bit of the old glue at the back just to hold the cockpit in place again. But it does sit, once you've screwed the whole car together, it will hold itself together once it's all in. Again, on this car, there's no screws to hold it hold the chassis to the body. It just clips, clip at the back and at the front, clip into the body shell. Just holds it together like that. So yeah, the old wing mirrors have still got the old stand bits in there, but they've been broken off, so I'm just going to knock those out. Then we'll try and find other mirrors to fit. The light bulbs, they were half working, a couple of them, but all the wires are just falling off, completely sort of corroded, and all the rubber and wires just falling apart. So normally you would have, so there's 4 bulbs, front and back. They each bulb would have one wire joined to the other, but this one's missing the other side, and then one terminal will join to the terminals going to the motor, and they basically just get pushed in at the back here. So the motor wire into the back, and then from each bulb there'll be one wire going into there and another wire into the other side, and then likewise from the side, one wire into there, another wire into there, and then each terminals from the motor have one at the back and again pushed in at the front, so we got the same thing at the front. I've got a couple of spare new sort of nice LED bulbs, and they'll just sit in. Just try and show you how they go into there. So they'll sit into the front of the car at the bottom like that, and then connect these terminals, one to each, on the motor. So we'll probably bin all those bulbs. I don't think they're any use to anyone at the moment. The guide looks functional, but yeah, it's going to need new braids. I think the wires are okay, but what I'll probably do is more than likely undo all this, partly because I want to get into the motor and give that a good clean, but I might wire it up slightly different inside. Maybe the bulbs will just be soldered with long enough wires going straight to the motor. I don't know, I'll decide that when I get to it. Anyway, that's where we are for now. Tires, I'll have to source some new tires. These are all very hard and cracking, crispy, so we'll cut those off. Try and find maybe a pair of bulbs for the back, if we are going to put bulbs in the back, and tires, wing mirrors, and yeah, I'll try and find what I can for the original rear spoilers and bumpers, Yeah, the original one, I think you could either put a bumper or one of those low front spoilers in there. Right, but that's what we'll get on with, and then we'll come back and have a go at assembling it. So just to cover, as I've done in other videos, when you're taking the motors apart, it's a case of either side, just bend back these little tabs gently. They go into these recesses of this plastic, so just bend that one and the one on the other side gently back. Then you can start to work out the armature. You might find these wires are trapped under this retaining clip, but you can just sort of gently prise it up, or this whole clip might just pop out. But I've just prised up the edges to get the blue and the red wire out, and then you should be able to just pull the whole thing apart. Here we go. So your motor casing, it's got the magnets inside. So what we're going to do is just gently clean all the debris out of there. You can see there's quite a lot of muck coming out of there. And then on the armature itself, you'll have small spacers and washers down here. There's normally a plastic one on the inside edge, and then maybe a little brass one, so just be careful you don't lose those. We'll have to take the pinion gear off, and then we can pull this armature out. There we go, pinion gear's off. And as you gently undo this, in here, if we can get you to see in there, there's these little brushes that touch on the armature, little carbon brushes, so you might just have to bend those out of the way. Just gently prise them out of the way so we can get the armature completely out. There we go. Right. Okay, so all this we're going to just gently shine up. You can use a little bit of rubbing alcohol or something like that. We don't want to scratch this armature much, but we'll just wipe the blackness off, try and get it all shiny. We'll give the whole thing a bit of a shine up. And again, there'll be little washers, spacers on the end here, or they might have ended up inside the armature. Inside the casing, should I say. Yeah, so sometimes the washers might come off in the casing. Likewise, down in the end of the motor housing, you might find the washers are down there. So just be careful where they are. Keep track of what order they go in as well, so you can put them back in. These are the little brushes that run on the armature. You can see that they've worn down quite a bit. But yeah, we'll give it all a clean and then put it back together in a minute. Right, there we go. It's all been cleaned up a bit, a lot cleaner than it was. You can probably see the armature's got a bit of a shine to it now, which is good. With the brushes off, what you can do is just assemble the motor loosely, and I tend to just hold it, just give it a spin by hand, just to make sure it's running freely and not rubbing on anything. But yeah, happy with that, should be all right. A little bit of end float, that's okay. Good, right, now to pop it back together. Right, so the motor's reassembled. The little retaining tabs bent back in to hold it all together. Still freely spinning, which is good. I've tried just holding these wires on the track and putting power through it. It sounds a lot better than it did originally. Unfortunately, I didn't record how it sounded earlier for you, but yeah, it sounded really rough earlier, but now it sounds a lot smoother, and that's without even having put some oil in yet. So we normally just put just a tiny drop of oil in there, but more so down this end, just a drop of oil. Then it should spin and work very well. Right, so on the Ford Capri, I've decided to have a go at building up the wheel arches that have been chipped away. So I've just used this modelling Plasto, which just mix it up with a bit of a putty knife, and I've just been applying a little bit there. Dries fairly quickly, and then I've just been using a round former like this lid top from a bottle, and just pushing it until I get a round edge and allowing it to be proud a bit, and then I will sand it down gently to hopefully be smooth in there. I'll probably have to add a little bit more in places just to get a smooth shape. Not sure how well this is going to work, and then on top of that we're going to have to somehow paint it to match. Might just be a case of painting this whole section black so it blends in with the black flame thing there, or if I can match up the white, then get it back to how it should be on the white. But if it doesn't work, hey ho, we just take it all off. Right, so thanks to Scalextric's car restorations, they've sent us some tyres for this Ford Capri, so I'll be putting those in later. And we've also received the front and rear bumper and the large rear spoiler. These are going to have to be painted because they're just a sort of an off-white ivory colour at the moment. Originally they would have been white. I'm thinking, well, I'm toying with the idea of painting them black. I think the black might be a nice contrast in the bumpers on the front and the back, and the rear spoiler as well. But if that doesn't work, we can repaint it. So we've just been sanding it down with a bit of the emery, very fine emery paper, just sanding down this putty that we've put on the mud guards. It's coming along, getting a more true rounded effect on there. You can see it's getting smoother. So I think that will work out all right. I suspect it'll be quite brittle, this, so it might all just come off in the first big accident that it has. But I think let's just carry on with it, and at least it'll look the part. Unfortunately, yeah, we've kind of scratched some of the black decal or painting there, so I'll have to just try and touch that up a bit once we're done. So I'll have a go at doing maybe the wheel arches white, and then just touch up this black later. We'll just use these acrylic paints. Got acrylic white, acrylic black, both gloss. So I've done a coat of white actually. I've decided let's try white first on these spoilers and bumpers. So we'll carry on with that, get another coat of paint on these, and carry on smoothing this down, and then get a bit of paint on it and see how it looks. Right, so after quite a bit of time of moulding the wheel arches and then smoothing them off and just trying to get them rounded, we've ended up using a black paint on them. I just used the acrylic, so gloss acrylic, and just sort of blended the arches into the black pattern on the body, and that sort of got covered up in all these scratches that I had caused on here in smoothing the wheel arches, the putty in the wheel arches. Anyway, we've got some shape to the wheel arches now on both sides. We've given it some paint. It's fine for what I need. In certain light, the black paint is quite shiny, but I think it'll probably tone down with a little bit of rubbing, etc. But I think for what I wanted, I'm happy with that. We've ended up sticking with the white on just a white paint on the bumpers and the rear spoiler. I must admit I did not prepare these properly the first time, and I had a go at using this acrylic gloss white, and well, first of all, the colour didn't match properly the body. It was still not quite a matching white colour. And secondly, it was a bit of a mess up of a job. So I ended up rubbing all that paint off and then preparing the surface better. Like they say, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And yeah, I should have prepared these plastic parts first. So yeah, we took all the messed up paint that I'd put on off, and then just gave it a very light sanding down, just so that we got something for the paint to adhere to. And then I decided to opt for the it's called a surface primer spray. It's a white paint. It's supposed to just be a primer, but actually, because the colour is a good match to the car, it's not too glossy either. I've just given it a couple of coats of that spray paint, and I'm going to leave it at that. I think we're going to get them put on the car, so it'll just be a case of pushing it into the holes. They'll probably be tight enough, but if not, I'll put a bit of hot glue on the inside to hold them in place. And then what we can do in due course is put some decals on them if need be, but that's the next step. Okay, so the rear spoiler and rear and front bumpers are all on, looking alright so far. I've put the driver cockpit inside. It normally would just clip there and there. This one had a broken clip at the back. Wouldn't really matter, but I've because it's got these plastic stands that would push against the chassis anyway to keep it in place. But I decided I'll just put a tiny bit of glue in there just to hold it in place. So that shouldn't be going anywhere now. He's looking alright for now. And then on the chassis, we have started putting things back together. I decided on this one I'm not going to bother with rear lights, so it was just a case of I've got these two LED lights. Now you could either wire the red wire from each light. You could push, if they were long enough, the wires you could solder all together here on the motor with the red wire that goes to the braid. Likewise, the other two wires, the black ones, you could solder them together if they could reach all the way to the blue wire on the motor. But originally what you had was you had wires coming from these brown wires. There's brown wires here. There's one coming from each terminal going to a little connector that would be for the rear light, and then that joins with a long wire going all the way to the front, and it goes into a small recess there, and that connects to two wires from the bulbs, and likewise on the red side the two red wires from the bulbs connect to another brown wire which goes all the way to the rear light and to the motor. So these both sides just have these, they're like push spade connectors if you like, and they just push into the, so at the rear we've got the same thing, two holes that these connectors push into. So if you had rear bulbs, you'd have one bulb here, and one wire from each bulb would go direct into each of these holes, and likewise from the other side. But I'm not going to bother with the rear lights on this car, so I'm just going to push these spades in there, just push them down tight. Okay, so it's still got the wiring available should rear lights want to be fitted, but I'm going to leave it at that and just have the front bulbs. So the last thing really, yes, we've got to put the axles and the pinion and gears in. The last thing really is just to sort out the connectors onto the guide plate and some new brushes. Yeah, so that's the guide plate that we've got to get some brushes pushed in, and hopefully those connectors will still work. Okay, having assembled the chassis, I've just sent it around the track, and it is working all right with the new guide and the braids and everything. But the more and more we do on this car, the more and more little issues we find. So the front axle wasn't clipping in at all, so you can see it just sits loose. It functions like that, but I don't think it's ideal. Normally it would clip in, it'll have a bit of play and clip in, but no, these are just floating at the moment. So what I've done is I've just cut a small sort of plastic. See, there's black plastic down here. It's a nice tight snug fit, and I'm going to put another one just in there. And that way it holds it in, and I can push it down a bit further so there's less play or more play, you know, pull it up a bit. So just by yeah, this bit of plastic, I can just push it down a little bit more into the recess. Gently does it, and then yeah, it sits quite hard, and then you've got a tiny bit of play. Right, so anyway, we'll put another piece on that side. Could glue them in, but I think for now I'm just going to put them in loose. They're quite a tight fit, so hopefully that will help on the front axle. Okay, so I've ended up gluing those bits of plastic in so they don't move. We've got a little bit of play up and down the front axle, but it's obviously going to stay in place now and not be completely flying up and down. So that's it. We've just put the little bit of oil in the on the axle bearings, a little bit of grease on the cogs there, spot of oil on the motor there, and a little bit down on the front axle. So I think we're good to put it together and give it a whirl. Right, and that's how he looks all assembled. Looking a lot better than he did when he first arrived here. We've got wing mirrors glued in now as well. And yeah, I was just thinking maybe that's why these front wheel arches had been chipped away by somebody in a former life, because if the front axle wasn't holding down, then I suppose the concern was the front wheels were rubbing on the bodywork. Maybe that's why somebody had hacked away at the wheel arches. But anyway, we've got the front axle staying down with a bit of play in it. We've got our wheel arches on. The back's okay. A little bit of clearance between the wheel and the body, but that's ample. It should be fine because there's no sort of up and down play on the back. Right, no, happy with that. Let's put them on the track. Right, and the result is some nice bright lights. And a car that's behaving fairly well. Just needs a bit of running in and get the wheels, the tyres chewed down a bit, but otherwise happy with that. Thanks for watching.